I go back to when I was a kid. I was a president like junkie. I just loved studying the presidents. I loved Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. In fact, I used to be called the Lincoln lover. But I love trying to figure out what made someone lead and what made it work for them, and how did they step into their destiny to lead. So I think of Log Cabin to White House, which was my favorite book about Abraham Lincoln when I was in about second grade. And it was the whole idea that this ordinary guy became someone extraordinary. And that is what this is all about this morning, today, if you're watching my recording, midnight, whenever you're watching. But I want to share with you these concepts that have been transformational for me, both as I've been coached and then over the last 19 years in coaching other people and then training coaches, that I feel like take someone from basically their version of a log cabin to a White House. So I am going to share my screen and see how I do doing this. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 8 coaching habits, how to coach everyday people into world changers. How many of you guys invest in stocks? I used to be a financial advisor, so I get this stock thing, but my wife is a much better stock picker than me. But years ago, 2014, she said we should invest in this stock called Tesla. I knew hardly anything about it. Battery operated cars, what was that? And so we invested. We didn't put a whole lot, but we have shares of Tesla in some of our kids' accounts, some of our accounts. And basically, you know, like as you can see, it just kind of hovered there. Didn't do very much for years. Okay, years. It just kind of went up a little, went down a little, went up a little, went down a little. Well, if you followed the news on Tesla at all lately, you'll notice it just went crazy. Okay, over the last couple months, it has gone up to from like basically we bought it at like 180 and it would go like to 200, back to 180. It went up to 968. It has just gone crazy. So people have seen value inside of this company that they hadn't been looking at before. And because of that, it has gone crazy. And so that's kind of what I see this coaching thing as. It's like all of a sudden you see somebody who's just kind of inching along, and there's this incredible untapped potential that by coming alongside of them and coaching them, I believe brings that to a whole new level. And that can be vocationally, it can be spiritually, it can be emotionally, it could be physically, it could be financially. But people suddenly in coaching can go to a whole new level. So I kind of see this Tesla example as something that, you know, someone can just be going along and then they bring a coach into their life, and that's when things can just go to a whole new level. So I believe that you are your best investment. I was, like I said, I was a financial advisor. What I came to realize is I believe it's so much better to invest in a person. But that starts with us. Okay, we've got to be willing to invest in ourselves. And so the fact that you are here on President's Day or watching this as a recording means that you're willing to invest in your growth, that you believe you have an untapped potential, that as you equip yourself, get trained, bring in a coach, do whatever it takes, you can go to a whole new level. And that's why I love coaching and love coaches and people interested in coaching. So what is a coach? Okay, just think about it. I mean, most people, they think, well, you coach a sport. Now people are starting to realize there's life coaches, there's leadership coaches, there's career coaches, there are physical health coaches. But what is a coach? I had literally been coaching for 16 years before I ever looked up what is the derivation of the word coach. Do you know? Maybe type it in if you know. What is the derivation of the word coach? Well, here's the answer. If you look it up, and you can keep me accountable, look it up. Where does coach come from? It comes from the 1550s, from the Middle French coach, C-O-C-H-E, or the German Koch, or the Hungarian Koksi. So I don't know these languages enough to tell you, but basically what they all are is a transportation vehicle or carriage. So think like coach and buggy, or stagecoach, or when you get on an airplane and you're in the coach section. A coach is something that takes someone from where they are to where they need to go. Isn't that amazing? That's what a coach is. So like when you're coaching somebody, you are literally helping them get to where they need to go. So part of what a coach does is they help someone, be clear on where they need to go, and make sure they get there. If you get into an Uber, you're gonna, not just say, hey, take me anywhere. You really have a sense of where you need to go. So a coach is taking people to where they need to go. So I said this once, and I've started to realize that people are hearing it. The coaches are today's new spiritual leaders. And what I mean by that is coaches help people grow in purpose. They help them discover and engage their meaning. They help them come to new levels of peace or productivity or meaningful growth where they step into their destiny. And I know coaches aren't the only spiritual leaders. There's other spiritual leaders out there, but I feel like today, the fact that coaching, okay, you may or may not know this, coaching is the second fastest growing profession on the planet, only to coding, okay? So people are becoming coaches, and people are now utilizing coaches, working for, to help them grow their leadership, their career. Companies now hire coaches, churches hire coaches, nonprofits hire coaches, because they recognize that coaches bring something that takes people to new levels. And what I believe is it can take the organization, the churches, the companies to a whole new level. So that is why I am personally committed to raising up an army of transformational coaches who are spiritual leaders for people, who bring out the best in them. In the Bible, in Proverbs, it says, the purposes of a man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. What does that mean? Well, it means that there's depth inside of human beings, and somebody who's wise, who might be a coach, has the tools, has the habits to be able to draw that out and bring it into reality. We all know of the word education, but what I like to talk about in coaching is the word extraction. Coaches are experts at extracting those purposes, and they draw it out. They bring that out. They bring it to the surface. So transformational coaching, all right, there's some people just say, I'm a health coach, I'm a life coach. I like to use the word transformational coaching, because I believe that the kind of coaching that I practice and seek and train other people in practicing is helping people go to a whole new level and overcome what I call the gap. And the gap is between where they are now and kind of that, the stock as it is now, and then the full potential of who God truly made them to be. Okay, and I believe that most people have a gap that a coach who is expertly trained or has certain habits can help them not spend the next 20 years just kind of limping along, but go to a whole new level, live into the full potential, and overcome all the things and the barriers that currently had kept them just limping along. So a transformational coach can bring and help someone bridge that gap and do it efficiently, effectively, less expensively than if someone didn't have a coach. Is there a need for coaches today? Okay, well, in leaders, I like I said, I'm passionate about leaders. I've led organizations. I was a senior pastor of a church that I founded. I know the life of leadership, and it's got its challenges. It can be dangerous. And, you know, the news, if you're watching this, you can see some of these pictures and maybe you recognize some of these leaders. There's others that I felt like I was too close to that I might have put on here that I didn't want to because I didn't feel like I should advertise. But I mean, you know, the sexual misconduct, the burnout rates going on in a lot of leaders, the suicides in people that you never thought it. This thing here says university leader resigns after bust in prostitution sting. I mean, just sad leadership stories that it's time to have a group of people that I believe are today's transformational coaches that will bring change to this. So that's leaders, but what about just people in general? Do people in general need coaching? Well, statistics, 76% of people dealing with chronic anxiety and physical symptoms are called the Sunday night blues. Like last night, if you're watching this live, there were a lot of people who went through the Sunday night blues. They dread going into work, so much so that they feel depressed or even sick. Okay. And then 70% of respondents, this is from a Harris study, they said that they were disengaged from their jobs. 13 said they were actively disengaged. So even people who do go to work are feeling empty, lost, unfulfilled. They're not utilizing their best gifts. And how will that change? Will it be? Someone reads a book? Will it be someone goes to a conference? I believe it's coaches, people who know how to use coaching habits. Just 33% of Americans claim to be very happy, according to the Harris poll. So most people are not very happy, and coaching can bring happiness. It can bring that kind of transformation. And then more than 1/3 of adults in the United States are now obese, according to the Center of Disease Control Prevention. And my belief, and you can tell me, or even just, you know, say in the chat if you agree, do you agree that a lot of people who are obese, it's not that they don't know what they should eat or have even, you know, potential diets, it's the underlying mindset. It's what's causing them to eat brownies late at night, or ice cream or potato chips, all these things that I can tell you that I have done. So anyway, what does it mean to help people address these things in a real way that is going to change them for good, not just put a little Band-Aid? And again, if you're a coach, you've seen it, you've experienced it. And I tell some people I'm addicted to coaching because I see the difference it makes in people's lives. Okay. Mindy Caliguire, anyone ever heard of her? You know, maybe type in the thing if you have. I can't necessarily see things you're typing in. I know some of you can. Mindy Caliguire, she teaches soul care. Okay, she's passionate about this. And actually, we're raising up soul care coaches right now. But Mindy was talking at a thing called the Q conference a few years ago, and she said there's a difference between the transfer of information and transformation. There's a difference between the transfer of information and transformation. And when she said that, I felt like that nailed it, because so many people feel like, go to this conference, read this book, that's really going to change things. And I love information. I mean, you can see my bookshelf back here. I mean, I'm a book junkie. I write books, I read books, I go to seminars, I watch webinars. I mean, this is information, right? But what really changes people? So let me ask you, you can type this in the chat. How have you been developed or transformed? When you think of how you've really grown, you know, what made the difference? And I've come to believe that it's usually, okay, go ahead and type it in. It's usually a person. There's somebody in your life. It's a key conversation. It's somebody who was there, who was fully present. And as I go back and I think, when did I go to a whole new level of growth? What helped me get a new level in my vocation or in my marriage or in my spiritual life? It was a person. And yet we don't, for the most part, train people in how to help others in that way? What would it look like to have people trained in the habits that are coaching people to whole new levels of growth? Okay, and what are those habits? So maybe some of you have heard Simon Sinek's talk, The Power of Why. Why would you want to learn these habits? Why would you want to grow to coach transformation? And I believe, and maybe you do too, you have to believe, do people have untapped potential? Is there something, I mean, you could even see it in your kids. You can see it if you're a leader of an organization, you see it in your staff, or if you're a manager, you see it in the people you manage, and you go, man, they're underperforming. So as coaches, if you don't believe this, then you can't coach, okay? You've got to believe that people have untapped potential, and you probably believe this about yourself. You have untapped potential. There's things that you can grow in, things that you can go to a new level in. So number one, your why. You believe people have untapped potential. Number two, you believe that people can actually change. You believe that people can go to a new level of leadership. They can go to a new level spiritually. They can go to a new level in emotions. You believe that people can change. And I know I've gone through times in my own life where I wondered if, heck, can I even change? Can people change? I was pastoring a church in Boston, and I started to wonder that, like, are we just putting on services? Are we just getting people to come to events? Are they changing? And so part of what has led me into coaching is I believe that coaching is the most effective way to bring transformation that is a profession or has structure to it. Okay, ultimately it's people loving people well, right? Do you agree? So a few years ago, I guess about 15 now, I was at a seminar north of Chicago. A guy by the name of Matthew Kelly, a great teacher, some great books. One of his books is called The Dream Manager. And so I went to hear Matthew Kelly speak. He was speaking at a large Catholic church, and he asked an audience of about 1,000 people, do you think people like change? He said, raise your hand if you believe that people like change. So I'm sitting there myself and I'm thinking, do people like change? I'm thinking, no, I mean, they don't want to change. I mean, people just kind of get stuck in where they are. No, people don't like change. So of 1,000 people, how many people do you think said people like change? Type it in. How many people do you think said people like change? The answer, 1. It was Matthew Kelly. He said, I believe people do like change. They want to change. They want a better health. They want a better marriage. They want a better career. They want to grow in more peace or purpose. He said, what's the problem? It's transition. It's how do people move from where they are to where they need to go. And friends, that's what coaching is. It's coming alongside of people in the transition to help the people who do want to change. So the third why is that you have a coaching bent. Okay, probably the reason you're here with me this morning is you love helping people grow. People confide in you. People say, hey, I've never told anyone this before, but I remember when I was a pastor going into a CEO of a major Fortune 500, his office, he invited me in, and him saying, hey, close the door. And then he wanted to share something with me. So I've never told anyone this before, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 27 years old and this CEO is telling me things. That started to unlock and make me see how lonely it is in leadership. That some 27-year-old young pastor and the CEO of a major company that was well known, he shared stuff with me. So the fact is that you're here and you're interested in this topic could mean that you have a coaching bent. Okay. And what I'm going to do at the end, I'm going to say, hey, if you've never taken on, if you go to it's just called Coaching Academy, coachingtransformationacademy.com. And I'll put that on there later, but there's a little assessment that is coaching for you, is coaching something that could be for you. So I'd encourage you just to take the assessment. It's free. and helps you just get a sense of, do you have a coaching bent? Okay. All right. And coaches are great at listening. Probably, more than anything, they're great at asking. There's just an amazing power in asking people questions and drawing out the deep waters. The unasked question is often the thing that keeps people from moving forward. So, you're great at asking, and you're great at believing in potential. So you can see coaching, and this is, you may be on here this morning and you're saying, hey, I want to do this full time. I want to make this my career. And so I'm committed to training people to succeed in being able to do it full time, being able to make an impact and make an income doing this kind of coaching. So it may be that you want to do it full time or part time. And coaching is an amazing thing to do on the side, because you can do it at night, you can do it flexibly, you can do it on the weekends, you can meet people in person. I coach people like all around the world. I coach one guy who's in Bangladesh. I coach someone who's in Tunisia. I coach someone who's in California. I live in Colorado, but you can do this part-time doing it that way, or do it as part of your leadership. And I'm committed to helping churches who want to, bring coaching practices, or organizations. And you might do this as part of a way to develop leaders as part of your organization. And you're going to use these coaching habits that way, or as just a way to give back. I know some people who have retired and they say, I want to coach as a way to develop leaders and give back. So which is your way? And maybe you start with one and it becomes another, but how could coaching be something that is your way of serving? My coaching story, I was a pastor. I pastored a church in the 90s. I went to seminary, and I believed in spiritual development. I believe in the Bible. I believe in teaching it. I believe in the church, but I recognized that I really wanted to work with people very personally. I wanted to work with them one-on-one. I wanted to have them hear their stories. I wanted to help them take their stories and grow. And so I've been coaching now for 19 years. I went through the Coach U back then, which was taught by a guy who really founded coaching, a guy named Thomas Leonard. And so it's kind of interesting to see who's still around, 19 years later, who went through some of these coaching back then. But I do it full time. I've left everything else to train coaches and coach, because I love coaching so much. I had to leave things that weren't me, which was hard, because I was getting paid as a pastor. I was getting paid to do things that really wasn't the best of who I am. So a question for you is there something you're doing now that might not be fully you, that you might go, hey, coaching might be a part of me living into me? Okay. The world is changed by your example, not your opinions. I saw that quote and I felt like I needed to put it out there, because as you thrive, that's going to bring other people to thrive. I've seen it in my family. I've seen it as I've lived into what I love doing and what I'm called to do. It's brought life to them. So first things first is living our own example of coaching. We've got to coach ourselves. We've got to be coached, and we've got to then, live into our values, live into our vision. Yes, but how? Okay, that's the question I always ask. So sounds great, but how? How do you really do this, Jeff Caliguire? What does it mean to move into that kind of a place? And what I've come to see as it relates to growing as a coach, it's all about habits. It's all about the way you show up and the way you coach. And in 19 years, I started to realize it's not that complex. There's some simple ways of coaching that, yes, you can go much deeper in, but I've kind of started to see that there's almost what I see like the colors of the rainbow as it relates to coaching. And that's what I started to step back and say, when people are transformed, what have I brought to them? what do I do that really changes them? And that's where I kind of started to discern these 8 coaching habits. And maybe you guys have heard of Charles Duhigg, who speaks on habits. He said the key to victory was creating the right routines. And I see that in coaching. I see it in how you market coaching. I see it in how you coach. That basically you've got to come down and go, what are the things that I do again and again that bring victory? So every time I coach, I'm not showing up going, what do I do next? How do I do this? I mean, I remember I used to be fearful, like showing up with someone who was, successful, or a CEO or a politician or something. And I'd be like, what am I going to offer them? And now having these habits in my back pocket, and now part of my to do, I feel like I can show up and coach anyone, even if they're, they do things. I used to coach a guy who ran a plumbing company. Ask my wife what I know about plumbing. I mean, I just fixed my toilet for the first time last few weeks ago, and I felt like I should have a medal. But I could coach somebody who was a plumber and ran a plumbing company because of these coaching habits. And coaching habits, they can affect someone's mindset, their emotions, their spirituality, and their behavior. Like what I see is that it's a holistic approach that's not just about, here, do this, here's information, but there's a way to really bring transformation to the way someone thinks. Neuroscience is basically saying the brain can change. Neuroplasticity means that people's mindsets are able to change. People can be transformed by the renewing of their mind, as the Bible said. Science is saying that's the case. People's emotions, their anger, their sadness, their depression can be changed. People's spirituality, their sense of peace, purpose, that can change. Their behavior can change. So I'm a big believer in change, but I think of it's kind of like the joke from the how many counselors does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is 1, but the light bulb really needs to want to change. So yes, we can't bring this to people who aren't open to coaching, but more and more people are hearing the testimonials of coaching and they're open. So I just finished writing a book that's literally at the printer that's called The 8 Coaching Habits. And these are the habits. And I thought I'd share them with you up front. And I thought, no, I'll just kind of reveal them. Okay, so I'm going to take you through COACHING. I'd had people read this before and they go, oh, I never realized it spelled coaching. And part of the reason that I did that is because it makes it memorable, and I forget concepts. It's easier to remember stories or faces or names than it is concepts sometimes. But I tried to make these simple, and I'll walk you through them. Some of these we're going to go a little deeper than others, but feel free to take notes. There'll be some questions that you can utilize both for yourself and for others that are part of each of these. So the first one is super simple, but it is probably the most profound and most important. It's connecting presently. Connecting presently. As a coach, you show up and you are there with them, for them, and they feel that. 1995, I got to meet Mother Teresa. 4'11", 122 pounds. I was in Fall River, Massachusetts. And the reason I met Mother Teresa, not because it was me one-on-one with her, I was there with probably 2,000 people. But as Mother Teresa was there, she was present with every person who stopped her. You could tell that this person cared about every person. When she waved and looked at people, or she blessed them. And it was a truly spiritual experience to see a human being fully present with others. And that's where coaching starts. It starts with your presence. You may have heard your presence is your present. The greatest thing we bring to those we coach is the sense that I am here for you. Psychology Today says the need for human contact is greater than the need for safety. People need others in their life. And so we bring into senior leaders, we bring a fully present human being. And we can do that over the phone. We can do it over Skype or over Zoom, or we could do it in retreats. But the fact is, we've done the work to be able to show up presently. And I wrote a book called The Habits of Hope that are practices that I practice and I teach others that are just about showing up hopeful and present. So like this morning, before I could come to you, I have to do my gratitude list. I do my meditation, my prayer, my scripture, and it's all part of being able to show up feeling like I don't need to prove anything to you. I don't need to perform. I can be with you. So part of your growth as a coach is your willingness to do those things. And then you believe this. You believe there is an expert in the room and it's not you. That's where coaching is different from consulting or mentoring or teaching. Coaching believes that the person who has the answers, the person with the wisdom is the person you're coaching. If it's a group that you're coaching, you believe the people you're coaching have the answers. And so you're showing up fully present to draw that out. So first, what enables you to show up fully present? And here are some questions that I think start off connecting presently. Now as you're with somebody. Number one, just a simple question that is so simple, it's crazy. What's on your mind? Just giving somebody the space to even realize, because often people don't realize what they really are thinking. You're enabling them as a coach to get clear on what's on their mind. Number two, what have been your wins since we met last? Like start with a positive. Ask what's been good. Help people start to see even that they have been winning, that they have been making progress. So simply, hey, what have been your wins since we met last? And I know it sounds weird, but you start to build almost like a resume and help them build a resume of wins as you do this week after week. What would make today one of our best sessions ever? Okay, so you're helping them start to think, how could this really be effective? Especially if they're paying you, you want this to be effective for them. Who knows what's going to make it effective? Well, they may or may not know right away, but you can help them start to see what's going to make this an effective session for them. Okay, so number one, connecting presently. Number two, opening possibility. Opening possibility. This is where you come together with them and you help them envision. You help them dream. You help them what if. Okay, and most people don't take the time to imagine. You're unlocking their imagination. You're working with them to help them start to see what could be. In the Bible, in Proverbs 29:18, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Okay, so you're helping them gain a vision. You're helping them understand the desires of their heart. And what I've come to see is the more specific, the better. 7 years ago, I was coaching someone. I asked them the question, hey, if God was to say you get to live into the best case scenario, what exists 5 years from now? Oh, someone just texted me that's on this call. What exists 5 years from now that doesn't exist now? And he said, hey, how'd you answer that question, Jeff? Well, I hadn't answered it. So I went and I answered the question. And in answering the question, I wrote, I live in Colorado. I write and I coach and I train coaches. And Mindy and I own a retreat place that people can come to and find healing and find a vision for the next phase of their life. Well, I hadn't been to Colorado since I'd been a kid. And now 7 years later, I'm coaching, I'm training coaches, I'm writing, and we just bought 26 acres this last month to build a retreat place for leaders. And I've seen that happen with other people too. It's what happens when you help someone gain the understanding of the possibility. So opening possibility questions. If you had all the resources and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? If God says go for it, what exists 5 years from now that doesn't exist now? Just if you answer that question out of today, it will have made today worthwhile. Okay, so like write that question down. If God says go for it, what exists 5 years from now that doesn't exist now? And if you learned you only had one day to live, what would you regret not having done? Now, in the book, there's a whole bunch of other questions that I share that are these kind of questions. What I try to do is equip with each of the skills or each of the habits, what are key questions that you can have as tools to bring to your coaching, and that's part of learning, is to know what's a great question. So, opening possibility. Next is assessing inventory. Assessing inventory. My dad used to run a paper company in New York City, and once a year, twice a year, we would have to go and count all the boxes of paper. And it looked a lot like this. And we'd have to count how many boxes, was the box full? And the reason is you wanted to know, what do I have to bring to my clients? What do I have to offer? So a number of years ago, it was a January 1st, New Year's. Mindy and I were out in Arizona, and we spent some time doing that, saying, what do Jeff and Mindy Calaguire have? What's our education? What money do we have? What resources do we have? We had 3 children. We had a certain education. We had skills that we developed. We'd also had pain that we'd gone through. So part of knowing what you bring is even to say what experiences, what pain. But in helping somebody else, if you can help them know what do you have to offer, and in this you can use an assessment, you can help them understand their personality type, you can use Enneagram, I use a thing that's called Ascend, which helps someone understand their stories and motivated abilities. But you're helping someone know, what do you offer this situation? So some of those questions include, list what you bring to the table, okay? Helping someone stand back and say, what do I have to offer? What challenges or pain have you experienced that's now part of your arsenal or wisdom? Okay, so that's that part. The next is clarifying reality. Clarifying reality. You know that most of us live our lives where we don't necessarily have someone else giving us feedback. And like, we need mirrors in our life that can sometimes help us see ourselves from outside ourselves. It's like if you watch yourself in a video and you see yourself from the side, or you hear your voice and you go, is that me? Is that what I sound like? Is that what I look like? So it may be that part of what you need to help someone do is see themselves, hear themselves. And that looks like helping them know, this is what I'm hearing you say. And you gain the habit of being able to repeat back what they've just told you. And I know you might feel like you're a parrot doing it, but sometimes it's powerful to hear our own words and hear it back. Or you might need to help someone know how they're emotionally coming across. You seem excited. I see passion in your eyes. Or I see you being scared right now. Or what's the tears coming to your eyes? But as coaches, we help someone see so then they can make sense of the emotion, or we help people know what they're not saying. You're not saying you really want to make this change. You're not saying you're committed. You're not saying you're excited. So sometimes clarifying reality is helping them see what they're not saying. So some of the questions that are clarifying reality questions are, when are you most free to be the real you? Okay, helping them see that, helping them understand. And one of the most powerful things in someone's growth as a leader or in their vocation is when they become free to speak their truth, to be themselves. One of my favorite quotes is Soren Kierkegaard's, "Now with God's help, I shall become myself." Now with God's help, I shall become myself. So helping someone see themselves, so they become themselves. If you were to describe this situation or decision using a simile or metaphor, what might you use? Now, that is one of the most powerful tools I feel like I've learned in the last number of years as a coach, is having someone say, hey, create a picture. Take the situation or the decision and make it a metaphor, make it a story. And part of what happens is they step outside of the emotion or all the distraction of the decision, and now you can speak to the story. And everybody I've ever done this with, okay, so get ready, they're going to say, oh, I don't know. I can't come up with anything. And then I will wait and I'll say, just try, just come up with something. Well, we create similes and metaphors every single night when we dream. Our brain knows how to create stories that help us process things. So by giving someone the space, they create basically a dream that helps then process the decision. I was working with a coach a few years ago trying to make a decision on if I go and work with a coaching organization. And I said I was driving along a road. And she said, what road? And I said, it's Route 70 going through the mountains in Colorado. Where are you? I said, well, I'm actually coming up to an exit and I see the exit, but I don't know whether to get off. And she said, any specific exit? I said, yeah, it's the exit to Breckenridge. And she said, describe that exit. And I said, well, you go up and there's like this circle up there. Maybe some of you have been there. There's like a deer in the middle and you can go around the circle. And what helped me realize was that by processing that, I could explore, but I could always get back on the highway. So sometimes it becomes simple and the decision becomes simple when you create a metaphor and you help somebody do that and clarify reality. Okay, so clarifying reality, healing negativity. All right. I don't know if anyone's ever read the book, and I do recommend this book. It's by Stephen Pressfield, called The War of Art. Not the art of war, the war of art. And basically he says that any artist knows is that you have this thing called the resistance. You have negativity that says, I can't do this. Who am I to create this art? Or I'm going to do it later. And everybody I've ever worked with, coached, has their version of the resistance. They have negativity. They have those voices that say, who am I to coach? I'm not good enough. I don't have enough education. I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough money. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not healthy enough. But part of what we then bring is help them become conscious. What are those negative voices? What are those negative things that they're saying? And then we can help them get to a place where they can be healed. There's something that Dr. Daniel Amen defined as ants, automatic negative thoughts. Okay, he has a great podcast, Dr. Daniel Amen, and he talks about the idea that we have unconscious things that just come to our minds. We may not even hear ourselves saying them. And they are things like, who the heck am I? And I'm not that good. And I'll be nervous. I can't speak. I can't teach. I can't coach. So part of what we're doing in the coaching process is identifying what are those automatic negative thoughts keeping someone from living the full them. Some questions to ask: what is the resistance that you encounter? Or if you were to replace your ants with a new phrase or word, what would that be? So instead of I can't do this, I'm gifted, or I can do this, or God is big. I'm small, but God can do this. Another, what ants might be holding you back right now, helping them get clarity. So the process in this healing negativity is helping them get awareness, helping them then question the automatic negative thought, and then help them find a new replacement so that they can move forward. So healing negative questions, or healing negativity. So a few more. Increasing necessity. Okay, that's a picture of burning the boats. Increasing necessity means I will do this. It's a commitment that often most people don't want to make a decision. They don't want to say, yes, I'm in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build this, I'm going to create this. And so they hover. And if you listen to Tony Robbins, he talks about one of the biggest things that changed his life was making a decision and realizing that he could bring others to a point of committing, of making a decision. What happens, I used to do weddings. I've done over 100 weddings. And what I find is, what's the difference between before they walk down the aisle and after? They've made a commitment. They've said, I do. And that's the moment we bring people to as a coach, where we're asking people, are you willing? Are you in? And what's the cost of not doing this? Because there's a cost to do it, but what's the cost to not do it? And we help them evaluate the cost and then say, yes, I will do it. And that itself could be worth the weight of your coaching right there. Bringing someone to make a decision, to go for it, to say, yes, I will write the book, or I will start the company, or I will leave this job that's killing me. I'm going to do it. So increasing necessity questions, what are you doing right now or wanting to do that requires absolute commitment? It requires you to say, yes, I'm going to purchase this 26 acres. Trust me, there was a lot of sweating. Is that the right decision? But eventually make the decision and move forward. What is the cost of not doing it? Are you willing to pay that cost? Are you willing to keep doing what you're doing and not doing? You know, I'm not being a coach. Are you willing to pay that cost? Narrowing activity. Now it's like, all right, now that I've committed, what am I going to put into my calendar? What am I going to say yes to? And maybe even more importantly, what am I going to say no to? What will I do and what will I not do? Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least. Okay, that is a key concept. One of the statistics that I've heard that I feel like brings coaching to the fore is from the American Society of Training and Development. They found that by having someone literally write down their goal, they will get up to 42% more potential of doing it than if they hadn't written it down. Okay, just by writing it down. If they tell someone else, this is what they're going to do, this is what they're not going to do, it goes up to 65%. And if they have a regular check-in with that person, the potential goes up to 95%. So part, again, of the value of coaching someone is encouraging them to write the goal down, to put it in the calendar. Now 65%. Okay, tell me what you're going to do. When do you want me to check back? If you meet every week, 95%. I mean, imagine the statistics there, okay? So multitasking doesn't work, okay? Most people think they could do it all, and the reality is most of us can't do it all. So 3 questions that I encourage people to ask, and you can ask them every day, you can ask them every week, that are about narrowing activity, is just simply asking what's important about today, what must get done, and what's important about the future. Okay, just as you even think of your day today, I would encourage you to write those questions down, ask them today, and say what's important about today, what must get done, and what's important about the future. Finally, the last of the coaching habits is gaining accountability. It's inviting them to say, how can I check back in with you? What do you need? And usually at the end of any coaching session, I'll ask a couple questions. Number 1, what was most important that you heard that you said today? Not what I said. What was most important that you heard yourself say? Number 2 is, what do you feel like you need to do to move forward? What's an action step you need to take? And it could be, I need to make a phone call. It could be, I need to do this 5 times this week. But they're going public with you, and there's something powerful about them telling you that brings it into reality. So how do you then finally gain accountability? Some questions. What stuck out most from our time today? What actions would you like to take? And it's not rocket science, but when someone answers those kind of questions, it takes it to a whole new level. So as I told you, I've now written this into a book called The 8 Coaching Habits. And I hope that you see the value of learning these and developing these for your coaching, for your leadership development. If you're just to take one of these habits, which one of these habits do you feel like you need to grow in? Okay, connecting presently, opening possibility, assessing inventory, clarifying reality, healing negativity, increasing necessity, narrowing activity, or gaining accountability. Which are the ones that you feel like you most need? And then what will you do? What is your action? What action do you need to take to get to the next level, to either coach and bring this, or maybe you need to work with a coach? What I tell coaches is don't coach until you've been coached. So one of the things you might need to do is to work with a coach. And maybe that coach is me. Maybe I can work with you. Maybe it's somebody else. But what actions do you need to take what we've talked about today and bring it into reality? What habits will you create? Is there a new habit that you're needing? Maybe it's you need to ask those 3 questions, once every day for 2 weeks. What's important about today? What must get done? What's important for the future? But what habits? To make this time worthwhile? What steps do you need to take? And then some of you are saying, I need to really take this to the next level, and I want to do it full time. I want to do it part-time, or I want to use it in my leadership development. And that's what Coaching Transformation Academy is all about. It's doing this together and equipping you, and you're able to get a certification through the Coaching Transformation Academy as a certified coach if you go through the whole process. But a lot of it is utilizing these types of habits and doing it. And some things so anyway, Coaching Transformation Academy, if you go to that website, you'll see there's even a link where you can take an assessment that is coaching for me. But some of the things that I feel like make Coaching Transformation Academy unique is number one, which I feel like is if like I just said, hey, if I was starting coaching over again, or if I wanted to really grow as a coach, what would I feel like needed to be in place? And the first one I feel like is the most significant and probably sets this apart from 98% of other coaching programs is the mentor-coach relationship. Is where in doing this, you will work with me, and we'll meet twice a month to coach you, where you'll experience your own coaching for your life, but then also applying and growing your own coaching skills and growing your business. So number one, the part of the process is you work with a coach. More is caught than taught in coaching. Second is the community. Other like-minded coaches, some of whom are on this call, that are part of this, who say, yes, we're going to do this together. We meet twice a month. We meet on Zoom, but we go over a topic. Like on Wednesday, we'll talk about how to use story in your coaching, how to bring out the stories of others we coach and help them find clarity in their story. So doing it together and not being alone is key. The third is having coaching tools. Over the last 19 years, I've both developed and taken coaching tools that I bring to the people that I'm training. And then fourth, the coaching transformational process. And as of next month, they are now available in 3 books that everyone who goes through this will get to be able to have as part of this. The first one is just called Transformational Coaching, which is the foundational issues of coaching, how it works, what coaching does, the neuroscience of coaching, the spiritual development of coaching. The second part is this that we've just been talking about, the 8 coaching habits, and then going deep in those and sharing questions that go around each habit. And then the third part is called the Thriving Coach, and it's for coaches who want to do this full-time or part-time, how to develop your coaching practice in a way that's I'm giving you a system, but also allows you to do it in your unique way, in your unique voice. And that's where I feel like, there's a power of doing something together. I am, basically committed. I'm all in on developing and growing an army of transformational coaches around the world, of people who bring this kind of coaching to companies, to individuals, to leaders, to their families. And so there's something about, let's do this together. And I want to invite you to become part of a community. And, some people say, I want to make more than $100,000 as a coach. Great, we can help you do that. Or I want to take the coaching into my church. Great, let's do it. So the power of doing it together and not being alone, makes such a difference. So how about you? What action would you take if you weren't afraid? What, as it relates to this coaching thing, if there was no fear, what would you do? So finally, I want to invite you to have a conversation with me. If you are serious about taking coaching to a new level, either you're a coach already and you're saying, I want to grow a practice and have this become a full-time or a part-time thing, or you're saying, I want to explore, is coaching really for me? I'm going to highlight this. Let's see, can I do that? I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to put it in the chat. Okay. So it's in the chat as of now. So just go and set up a time to talk with me. I hope you think I'm approachable. I want to be approachable. And so just go and let's set up a time and we can explore. There's no commitment on your part, but explore what would it look like to take coaching into your leadership, into your career, and just go and take the time to meet and process this. And I'll listen to your story, and it'll be at least a half an hour up to an hour that we'll do this. And I'm willing, because you've spent this time on this webinar, I'm totally glad to do that with you and feel like that. I mean, because part of my joy is helping discover who are people who really need to coach. Anyway, I'd also just love to hear your feedback on this. At some point, this book, in a month from now, this book will be available. I'd love to have you read it, love to have you share it. Those of us who write books want, other people obviously to read them. And I feel like this is something that can equip you to take coaching to a new level. And like I said, there's 3 of them, and that's a long story in itself. But it's the top of the hour. I love doing this with you. I hope you guys have a great President's Day and would love to hear back from you on what your takeaways were. And again, go ahead and set up a time to chat with me, and we'll take it from there. But thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here. And let's see. Oh, there's a bunch of comments that I hadn't seen before. So I will read those. Just message me too. Just send me an email with some of your questions that I may have missed. And I'll continue to learn how to bring these webinars to you so that we all win. All right. Great being with you guys. Have a great Monday or Tuesday, whenever you listen to this. God bless.